Today we are talking about our coincidences, signs from God. How is it we can do some amazing and sometimes unexplainable things, like heal our own bodies by the power of our thoughts? Mother's intuition, the law of attraction. Can we really tap into our subconscious mind? Can we really create our own realities? It begs the question, are we novice gods? All right, today we are looking at our coincidences, signs from God. Now, the fun thing about this whole documentary series that you're learning is that you have the power to choose what you believe in. And I want to share with you what it means when you start to believe that coincidences are signs from God. Let me share with you a story. So I'm a filmmaker. Years and years and years ago, I was asked to assemble a team to fly to Cambodia and Mongolia to do some humanitarian filming. Now, we had, the project was a real headache project because it was this start-stop thing, and I didn't think it was ever going to happen. I kind of lost faith in it. And when you lose faith in it, things don't go really well. Well, I remember losing faith and getting really discouraged, and they, on one of these start-stop times, they said, okay, we're going to send you and a film crew to Cambodia and Mongolia. And so anyway, so my boss called me a few days later and said, what have you done on putting a team together? And I said, I haven't done anything because it's not going to happen. It didn't happen before. They were going to send us here. And, I was all frustrated, and he got even more frustrated at me. And he said, Scott, you put a team together and you get going on that right now. And I said, okay, fine. Well, when are we going? They didn't give us any dates. They said, okay, well, let's go July 6th through the 16th. And he just kind of randomly picked those dates out. I know, because I knew that he had some family parties kind of on either end of July that he wanted to go to. But he picked those dates, and so I said, okay, well, I'm going to call and I'm going to see if I can get Brian Wilcox, who is this amazing cinematographer. Whenever I can work with him, it is a joy in my life. I'm going to see if I could get him. He works at the motion picture studio here, and I'm going to see if he's available. And so I called over and talked to the head guy who does all the scheduling, and told him I was looking at using Brian for this humanitarian filming. And he said, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be out of the country. He was always out of the country. And he says, yeah, and in fact he's going to pick up his daughter in Mongolia. She'd been serving a 2-year mission there, or an 18-month mission. And my jaw just dropped and hit the ground. I said, Mongolia? That's where we're going. And he was surprised and looked at me and couldn't believe it. And he said, well, you better talk to him. And so I found him later that day, which was a miracle in and of itself, because he was always out of town, let alone out of the country. And I told him a little bit about what we were doing. And he said, wow, that's really interesting, because when we talked to our daughter on Mother's Day, we said, wouldn't it be cool if we could do some humanitarian work while we were there? And it was a humanitarian project. How cool is that? Then the clincher, he said, when are you looking at going? And I told him July 6th through the 16th, and he pulled out his little calendar. He had it written just down on just a paper calendar, and he opened it up, and he was going to be in Mongolia July 6th through the 16th. Isn't that amazing? So to me, that told me coincidences, that God was involved with this, that he wanted this project to happen. And suddenly I started to believe in it, and things started to come together. We only had like a week and a half before putting this project together to flying out. So it was kind of it was an intense thing, and we needed to believe it to happen, and then it did. Now I will share with you one more thing that is important. Because once you start to believe things are going to happen, things start to line up for you, and it builds your confidence and your faith even further. So one of the guys that was on the crew, he was in charge of of the funding. He was in charge of all the finances, and he was new to the crew. He had never gone on trips before like this, and he was kind of a little bit of a scatterbrained. Wonderful person, but maybe not as well organized as you would think. And as we were at the airport, we've checked in, we've got all our luggage in, all the gear in, and as we've gone through security, we hear his name being paged. And anyway, it turns out he had left his wallet home that had thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that would help fund this expedition through the whole trip. And my stress level had been extremely high through this whole process. But I just laughed to myself because I thought, you know what? I've seen enough evidences to show God wants this to happen. I believe it's going to happen. And all these crazy coincidences just kind of proved that to me. And when I came with that level of faith, everything worked out. His wife met him at the airport with the wallet and the cash in hand. We were able to make this trip. We were able to get some amazing, incredible scenes and stories out of that. So anyway, when you believe that coincidences is actually God's hand in your life, it's God's way of remaining anonymous is how I like to look at it. When you start to live that way and you try those beliefs on, it's amazing to see what happens in your life. All the things that click into place to make things, really work out the way you want them to. So here are 3 things that you can do once you start recognizing coincidences happening in your life. And I'll share with you just another movie. This one is The Hunt for Red October. Came out in 1989, I believe. Fun little film. And in this film, there's these American naval people, and they are tracking this Russian sub that has just developed this silent propulsion drive. And instead of using propellers, it has this silent drive, and so you can't really hear it. And there's a guy on the ship who normally does their sonar and things, but he hears it as it goes away and recognizes this sound. And so he records it, and he records it several times, and then he goes to the ship's captain to tell him, I think I can track this thing because I recognize what it listens to, and the sonar won't pick it up because it doesn't sound like anything that's ever known before. It thinks it's like a whale or something like that. And so he plays this back for the ship's captain, and the ship's captain just kind of rolls his eye because it sounds like just whales. And then Jonesy says, no, listen to it at 10 times speed. And when he does that, it goes, chun, 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 chun. So clearly, and they look at each other and they say, that has got to be man-made. Well, just like that, in your life, if you start to pay attention to coincidences that are happening repeatedly in your life, if you can compress those down and speed them up, you will recognize that not is that man-made, but that is God-made, that God is involved in your life. So I share with you 3 tips that you can do to increase your faith in God and your recognizing of His hand in your life when you see all these coincidences. And the first thing is to write them down. When you feel the hand of the Lord in your life, write it down. Pay attention to these strange accidents that happen. I told you about my experience putting the camera crew together for Cambodia and Mongolia. As I would, if you were to write those down, there were like 5 amazing coincidences that happen. When you compress them, you're like, God wanted it to happen. Think about your life. What are things that are happening right now? What are these crazy coincidences that keep popping up? If you keep a list of these things and review it often, you will recognize something is leading you, pushing you in the direction that God wants you to go. So write the coincidences down, review them often, and the third thing is to trust the pattern, trust the process. If you recognize that there is a pattern there, trust that pattern is going to continue. Another wonderful movie called Freetown. There's a line in it towards the end that is something to this effect that says, after all the miracles I've seen, it just didn't make sense to doubt anymore. When you start to recognize God's hand in your life, when you start to recognize the patterns and see His involvement in your life, it means that you're important. It means that you're valued. It means that you have a purpose and there is meaning to your life. And when you recognize these things and then keep moving forward with the faith that you have, you can make amazing miracles happen. What can you add? Now, are you ready to join the conversation? Are you willing to add your voice, your thoughts, your ideas, your impressions? If so, add them in the comment section below. We need your voice. Now, if you have been inspired to take action, don't let an impression slip by. Train yourself to listen to and follow your inner voice. Of course, the best place to take action is at scottwilhite.com, because if you join me for a free web class, you will receive a copy of my Purpose Planner, the tool you've been missing that will help you uncover your purpose. What if you are a God in the making? That would mean there's purpose to your life, meaning to your challenges. You have a great work to do. May you have the courage, faith, and power to become who you were truly meant to be. See you next time.